stuff scattered all over the place. And then so we just started, here's this, move this. And he even explained it a couple different times. But if I have more questions, he said, just give us a call. And that's what I love. He's a phone call away. Like, I'm glad I know these guys. Such a huge weight off my shoulder.
Imagine not second-guessing investments or monthly retirement income. That's the peace of mind you'll get from working with Trajan Wealth. Call 801-899-7600 today or visit TrajanWealth.com.
Actual client, no compensation, no conflicts. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
You're gonna love the hot summer RV sale at General RV. July 12th through the 15th, with payments as low as $99 a month. Only at General RV. In Draper, off I-15. $99 monthly payment based on purchase price of $14,999 with 30% down at 7.7% APR for 180 months. Rate and payments are subject to change at any time. Conditions apply.
Getting help with electrical repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Greta Credit Union's high-yield savings certificates. Here's Ricky Meese.
We've had reports of traffic lights malfunctioning along Pioneer Crossing, and I think that could be anywhere between I-15 and Redwood Road. Also a crash, 3600 West at 50th South. Gillette Heating and Air Conditioning is offering spring air conditioner tune-ups for only $59. Call 801-825-4500 to schedule today. A Carrier factory authorized dealer. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Looks sunny and breezy the next several days. Get used to the upper 90s. We're going to be at 98 or 97 Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for the highs. Right now, it's sunny, 92 degrees at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, your all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
I like governors. I think governors are great. I think governors have real experience. The great thing about governors is we actually have to get stuff done, right? We can't just do the performance thing.
Good afternoon. This is Scott Simpson. I am filling in today with Dr. Leah Murray. From
I like governors too, right?
Do you love governors?
I love governors.
We love governors. That's how we're starting the day today. It's not. That was our own governor, Spencer Cox, in Washington, D.C., I presume.
Yeah.
Yesterday, he sat at the desk for Face the Nation and took some questions.
Scott, talk to us about why does Face the Nation want to talk to Utah's own governor? What is it that makes him special that he gets elevated to that national platform?
Well, I do think this is interesting. He is the incoming chair of the National Governors Association.
Okay.
And keep in mind, he's only been the governor for 3 years. I mean, he had a little bit of a ramp because he was lieutenant governor, but NGA is different, right? And but the fact that he's been put in the track to become the chair within his first term is sort of amazing to me.
Can you tell me why that would be a big deal? For those of us who don't really know what the NGA does or how you would have to elevate your brand as one of the 50 governors to do that, why is that a big deal?
I really don't know. Obviously, I think it helps him tell a story in 2024 for his reelect here in Utah, but it's also a platform for national politics, right? For the next year or however long his term is, and I apologize for not knowing that, but for the next year, he's going to be the one that they look to on occasion for if State of the Union address rebuttal from the governors, or there may be something that gives him a national platform that doesn't happen very often in Utah.
Got it. So he's in Margaret Brennan's Rolodex, is what I hear you saying, right? If they've got a question they have for a governor, he's going to be the guy they call.
Yeah, for now, I think that's absolutely true. And so he stood in there, and it's what's interesting to me is the questions that they asked were not really national politics. Although some of them transcend state boundary, but it was a lot of state issues.
Yeah. So Margaret Brennan, who is the chair, or she's the host, not the chair, the host of Face the Nation, opened the interview on the topic of gun violence in our country.
What is it that's changed over the past 10 years? Again, when you look at the gun numbers in the state of Utah, those numbers increasing are not being driven by people getting caught in the crossfire or, kids shooting each other. It's being driven specifically by mental health and suicide issues. Now, we're doing more to help keep guns away from kids, keep them locked up. But what is it that's driving that desire to say life is not worth living anymore? And how do we as a society collectively work to make sure that kids know that it is going to get better and there is a reason to stay here? That's a huge focus for us as well.
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying. I feel like she's opening maybe the question around gun violence because if what you just said is true, he's going to be the national voice for governors, right? Maybe she's picking on him a little bit, Scott. So
Sure.
She's like, if you're the voice of governors and the state of Utah's got all these issues with guns, right? She's asking him to answer that.
Yeah, I think the producer corps for that show, they sat around and thought, okay, we've got a Republican governor, although, a fairly well-spoken Republican governor from a state that is right-leaning, arguably, and has taken up a lot of those issues. And we're going to throw some stuff at him that could be considered hyperbole. And I think in this first question about gun violence, the question was really, I think, directed towards these mass shooting events. And he very astutely, carefully pivoted to where, the real numbers behind these gun deaths, and that's suicide. And it's an entirely different debate than where gun control often wants to go.
Right, and then she asks this next question about why more focus isn't being placed on direct gun access. Here's what Governor Cox had to say.
It's certainly a conversation worth having and making sure that our gun laws are not causing more harm. And again, I haven't seen any evidence that that's happening in the state of Utah. Mm-hmm. But when we talk about laws, I like to ask again, if we're going to limit somebody's constitutional rights, and that's a Second Amendment question, is what we're doing going to make a difference? Is it causing more harm? Is it causing less harm? And can we see that? And I think we've tried to do a pretty good job of that in Utah. We're obviously not perfect, and we're constantly looking at our gun laws, at what's happening with our kids, and again, this mental health piece, which I think is so critical.
So, Brad, I think what's your point? Well taken, right? So I feel like on the left, people say it's about gun access, right? So we want to do is take all the guns away. And what you hear Governor Cox saying is, no, it's actually about a mental health issue, right? So it's not about having a gun in your gun cabinet. It's about what you're thinking as you go to get that gun, right? And so that the focus should be there. But I also liked right there at the end, he doesn't say we're not talking about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a proliferation of firearms in the country that should be talked about. It's, but it's not the entire conversation, and gun control is not going to be the solution either, right? I think that's, and so again, on the national platform, I think the governor did a pretty good job. If you're just scoring this from a political hacks perspective, which is what we tend to do, I think he did a pretty good job of bending the narrative away from or a direction where maybe the host didn't intend to go.
Right. And then the other thing that Utah is kind of known for right now is pushing to limit social media access to children. And so Brennan asked the governor about it, and here's what he had to say.
What we're trying to do is give families more control over what is happening on social media. When you look at the new research that's coming out, there's not just a correlation between social media use and an increase in suicide, anxiety, depression, self-harm. There is a causal link there. But again, what we're trying to do is to allow parents and kids an opportunity to have a little more control, and making these social media companies turn off the algorithms that we know are driving so much of this harmful addiction and then harmful action that comes from this addiction to social media.
So what do you think about that, Scott?
It's a winning issue for him. It is. I think the concern around social media transcends political ideology. I think there are parents on the right and the left that both
are worried
can
about
see
it.
This is such a tangible issue for most of America. Now, the solutions are in question, and I think it's sort of a attractive TV engagement question, because First Amendment comes into play, and you've got these gigantic tech companies that can bankroll lots of lobbyists, to defend their revenue streams. But I think it's a great issue, and it will carry us through the 24 cycle.
Right. So then Governor Cox gets asked about presidential campaigns of other governors, like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. And here's what he had to say about today's divisive political landscape.
We've stopped. We've absolutely gotten out of the business of persuasion. I've been reading Abraham Lincoln this week. He believed that in persuading others, you had to treat them with dignity and respect, and they would listen to you. We don't do that anymore. What we do is we placate our base, we tear down the other side. It's happening on the right and the left. And I actually believe that most Americans don't love it. It may lead to votes, but I do believe there's polling out there that shows that most Americans are tired of the divisiveness. They're tired of the toxic disagreement.
Leah, were you reading Lincoln this week?
I'm always reading Lincoln, Scott Simpson.
I know that he was at that Better Angels Summit or something.
Braver Angels, right?
Yeah. So he was, probably was reading that. But again, I think that's a winning narrative. I think it's interesting to see if, delegate types, the red meat Republicans respond to that message, because I think often they like the scrap.
Right. No, and I love how he's like, I think people are tired of toxic disagreement. I'm not sure that he's right. I think that's what makes everything so entertaining.
You're suggesting that we profess to be above it as a people, but in fact, we like to watch the train wreck.
We do. There's a reason why certain kind of television shows go the distance and other kinds don't. But, maybe he's not wrong, because Ted Lasso was very popular, right? So maybe it is the answer that being kind is the way to go. When asking very specifically about one of the governors, Ron DeSantis, and his fight with the Disney Corporation and whether this reflects a style of conservative leadership, here's what Governor Cox had to say.
There are conservatives that I think have felt for a long time that we keep losing these battles, and so we've got to try the same tactics as the left. They're using government to get their way, we've got to use government to get our way. It may work in the short term. I don't think it's a long-term fix, and I think it's very unhealthy. I think it's bad for our country. I think Ronald Reagan would be very disappointed in us. This rise in illiberalism that we're seeing happening all across the right. And so I would encourage my fellow governors at every time to remember where our roots are. They lie in free markets, less government, better government. But when we try to use the heavy hand of government to get our way, then that can only lead to chaos and destruction down the road.
Well, there you have it. Our governor kind of picking a fight with one of his own Republican governors, but pointing out a clear distinction in style and tone. And while we're on the topic of governors, we're going to get into it. We had another governor come to the state of Utah this weekend.
Utah roads?
That's a bad one. Ouch.
Are in rough shape.
Why don't they fix that?
Join us for an in-depth look at Utah roads and why repairs are taking so long this year. Listen mornings and afternoons this week to KSL News Radio.
School is out and the weather's warm. Summer's here. Hi, I'm Jay Broadman at Alpine Home Medical. We offer you the best quality products as well as excellent customer service. Whether you're in one of our 10 retail stores or shopping online, we'll provide you with the best experience possible. From CPAPs to compression stockings to portable oxygen concentrators to wheelchairs and scooters, you won't find a better selection anywhere. Our staff is here to find exactly what you need. And that's the reason why Alpine Home Medical has been voted Best of State in medical supply every year since 2009. When you're in need of medical supplies, we promise you'll find what you want at Alpine Home Medical. If not, we'll find it for you. Don't have time to come in? Shop online at alpinehomemedical.com. That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
At Your Service Pros Heating and Air recently received the following review on Yelp. I'm so glad I got a second opinion from At Your Service Pros. They identified the same items of work to be done, but gave me a much more realistic quote. I'll definitely use them again. Thanks, Seth. We're glad we were able to do the repairs for less than half of what the other company quoted him. There's a reason we're one of the highest rated companies on both Google and Yelp. If you want a free second opinion on your HVAC repairs, give us a call at 801-YOUR-PRO. That's 801-YOUR-PRO.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go, shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit NoTimeToWait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. Opening a My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal record and interactive tools tailored for you. You can see if you are eligible to receive benefits, view spousal benefit estimates, and compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates when you want to start receiving benefits. Already receiving benefits? Use your account to change your address, set up or change direct deposit, get a proof of income letter, and more. In most states, you can also request a replacement Social Security card. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
People think saving money is hard, but really, it's easy. It's as simple as changing a few spending habits. For free tips on how to save the easy way, check out feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Dave and Debbie.
One of my favorite things about Debbie is when we're in the middle of an interview, a light flips on and there's something that she picked out. I call it her spidey sense. And then she just tenaciously goes after that line of questioning. If someone tries to spin it, she's respectful, but she's firm. And she won't let you go with just that easy, trite answer. She's going to get down to the bottom of it, and I love it.
I've always been impressed with Dave's ability to go back in his memory bank and drag out factual details from previous interviews, weeks, months, even years ago. It is phenomenal to watch that happen because it adds so much context to our coverage in the moment. Dave's got it all right up here in his brain, and that's impressive.
This is a thing that Debbie does not do well. On-the-fly math.
I agree. So one thing I agree with him on.
Listen for Dave and Dejanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Becky Bruce. First, Salt Lake City police are searching for a suspect in yesterday's hit and run that killed a man while he was riding a bike near 5th South and Indiana Avenue. Second, a new survey from the American Hotel and Lodging Association shows hotels nationwide are suffering severe staffing problems. And third, there's an extreme heat advisory in effect all through the Southwest. States from Texas to Nevada will experience triple-digit temperatures. Right now, it's sunny, 92 degrees in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today, sitting in for Boyd Matheson, who we hope is having a fabulous day, even though maybe there's a heat wave out there, is me, Leah Murray, alongside my very good friend, Scott Simpson, and we're going to have a good 2 hours talking about all the most important news of the day. So, Scott, one interesting thing happened this weekend. The Utah Democratic Party welcomed a high-profile guest to the state, California Governor Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, not surprising, but kind of surprising. I know why Gavin Newsom wants to tour the country and sort of build things up, but I am a little surprised that the Democratic Party would welcome him here.
Right, like why Utah Democrats might want him to be here.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got an incumbent president, and there's a political operation in that incumbent presidency, and it's not all bad to raise money for local politics, but yeah, I mean, this is just an interesting visit, and I'll be excited to hear exactly what happened in this event.
Okay, so we have got to help you out to get that information. We've got Ben Anderson, the communications director for the Utah Democratic Party, here with us. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so Ben, can you talk to us about what is this Red State tour that Governor Newsom is doing and why he's here in Utah?
Yeah, so, he's been touring different states throughout the country over the last few months, and Utah is one of those stops along the way. As you said, he was here on Saturday, and, he kind of spoke about why he's decided to do this and start visiting red states across the country. He, talked about how he, after his recall election in California, kind of realized how the Republicans were mobilizing to push these really extreme ideas. And, he said he watched as across the country, Republicans were banning books, attacking free speech and, criminalizing teachers. And it was those kind of things that really motivated him to start getting out across the country, and supporting Democrats in our efforts to fight back against that.
Ben, I noticed in some of the coverage that the governor was quoted as kind of speaking directly to our governor's talking points and some of the positions and statements that he's made over the years and his trajectory. What can you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely did at least allude to Governor Cox. And, I think Governor Cox started out his term, and a lot of people saw him as being, a different kind of Republican, maybe more moderate than the National Party. But I think we've kind of seen him take a turn recently towards the National Republican Party and, embracing leaders like Ron DeSantis, who is one of the extreme Republican governors pushing book bans, pushing anti-LGBTQ legislation, things like that. And so I think, we've seen Governor Cox kind of try to sidestep some of those issues, but I think his support of someone like Ron DeSantis really speaks to his political character.
So, Ben, I'm wondering, I'm just going to maybe ask you a hard question. So this is Newsom. He is traveling the country, going to red states. So I just, it's an election year. I mean, it's the year before the presidential election, and I feel like Democrats have their candidates. It's supposed to be Joe Biden, right? Because he's our incumbent president, and he's a Democrat. Can you just talk to me about... Did it feel like he's gearing up for a presidential run against Biden, or he's hoping Biden steps down, or is just, I guess I'm just questioning a little bit the timing and whether national Democrats are a little frustrated with him?
I mean, I think there's been a lot of people speculating that, maybe this, mystical challenger to President Biden will emerge, who will have the credibility to, primary him. But the party is, fully behind our president. I don't think that Governor Newsom has any intention of running for president in 2024. I think that, it's pretty common we see elected officials from both parties who have possibly future presidential aspirations kind of start traveling the country and meeting with local groups and local parties to kind of boost their name ID and build some goodwill. But I don't think that's any indication that he plans to run next year.
So, Ben, obviously the objective of the visit, one of the objectives was to raise money. Can you give us a sense of scale? How many people were in attendance? Was it successful? I would love to know how much money came in, but I recognize you may not want to share that until it's publicly disclosed. But do you consider it a successful event?
Yeah, I think it was a great success. It was a relatively small event, just at a supporter's home. So, not a huge crowd of hundreds of people or anything, but like I said, pretty small, intimate. But we feel like it was, pretty successful and pretty cool to hear what Governor Newsom had to say in that setting.
All right, so Ben, if you go back far enough, California is a red state, and today we would be surprised, right, like by that statement, because California now is pretty blue. Did Gavin Newsom give you any, and by you, I guess I mean the Utah Democratic Party, any ideas or ways to move Utah on a path that maybe, I don't know that it would ever become as blue as California, but maybe it purples up just a little bit? Did you all get some ideas for that?
Yeah, he talked about how, 30 years ago, California was a pretty red state and, had a Republican governor that was pushing a lot of really conservative ballot initiatives. And he did talk about how, over time, Democrats really stepped up and started fighting back against that. And, it takes a lot of hard work to do something like that. But ultimately, they were able to move the needle to, where he mentioned that the Republican Party in California is actually relegated to third-party status right now because of their membership numbers. So that's a lot of progress to see in, just a few decades. And I think, we feel like we have a great opportunity here in Utah to start pushing that needle, moving the needle a little bit towards the Democratic side. That's the work we've been doing, and, we're going to keep at it.
Ben, I don't know that we've ever met, but I'm a former executive director of a state political party. And so I'm going to ask you an inside baseball question. The White House Political Affairs Shop, were they at all concerned about the state GOP or the state Democratic Party hosting a fundraiser for somebody who could challenge the incumbent president?
No, absolutely not. Like I said, I don't think Governor Newsom has any plans to run against Joe Biden. So we were happy to have him out here supporting our state Democratic Party and helping raise money so that we can elect Democrats here.
All right, Ben Anderson, Communications Director for the Utah Democratic Party. Thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you.
So, Scott, I guess I'm going to just totally believe that Ben believes what he just said.
Yeah.
But I think Gavin Newsom's running for president.
I do too.
Okay, so I am a little like, if I were Joe Biden, I think I would be worried about it.
Even if he doesn't ultimately pull the trigger, he's positioning himself for that opportunity, right? Keeping
That's
the
right.
doors open. Party building, really? I mean, I've never really believed that the big ticket candidates care for party build just for party building's sake, right? There's an objective there that's deeply connected to his personal political ambitions.
That's right. I mean, a little bit, I just don't buy it. That's a horrible thing to say, right? But I just don't buy. And I guess what's he going to do? He doesn't want to be the RFK Jr.,
right?
Because that just looks unseemly somehow, right? But he's got to be ready. So it's a low-key, slow burn kind of invisible primary. But I guess I question too, why is he here and in Idaho? Like, what is it about coming to these red states? Because I guess he was in Idaho like the week before. Like, how does that in any way help him?
I don't know. Well, part of it, you know how Broadway shows open in Boston to sort of get beat up and practice? Maybe that's what this is.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
These small events inside, he can test his messaging. He can see how the base reacts.
See if people laugh at his jokes.
Raise a little bit of money in between and do some good, I guess. So maybe that's what it is. We're the testing grounds for presidential aspiration.
All right, listeners. So here's the thing. Scott and I want to have a little bit of an inside baseball. I love that use of that phrase about these two governors. It's a tale of two governors out on the media tour this weekend. So after the break, we're going to have a conversation about what vision of the country we think Governor Newsom has versus what vision of the country we think Governor Cox has. Stay with us.
KSL News Radio, I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour. Salt Lake City police are searching for the suspect in yesterday's hit and run that killed a man while he was riding a bike near 5th South and Indiana Avenue. Brent Weisberg with the Salt Lake City police says police are getting out earlier in the day and later at night to avoid the heat, which means drivers need to be extra cautious.
Cyclists, runners, skateboarders, rollerbladers, it doesn't matter. Drivers need to pay particularly close attention to those roadway users to make sure that they are keeping safe.
Weisberg tells David Dujanovic this is the 10th traffic-related death in Salt Lake City so far this year. 23 inmates of the Utah State Prison got their college degrees today. KSL News Radio's Adam Small has details.
This group of nearly 24 inmates had to overcome a lot to get here today, including the pandemic, moving facilities, and just the day-to-day challenges with mental health and their environment. Sione Kawavaka got his degree with his family in the crowd.
Education opened my eyes to the reality of my condition, and it became important to me to take charge of my life, secure my future, and try and enlighten those around me.
According to Salt Lake Community College Director of Prison Education, David Buckavoy, studies say 65% of people who earn a degree in prison never go back. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. States across the Northeast are bracing for another wave of excessive rainfall today. The last 24 hours brought intense flash flooding to parts of Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and Vermont. Your money at this moment, the Dow in the green up 178 points. The S&P is up 5 points. The NASDAQ has gained 7 points. Coming up, the July heat is here in Utah. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time 1:31.
This summer, the political season heats up.
By August, it'll be time for debates. Can you believe it?
We're planning coverage of the real issues, the important stories that impact how we live.
Listen each morning from 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
I guess it's human nature, Amanda, that no matter how much money we have in our savings account, it never seems like it's enough. And if you find yourself in that mode right now, let us direct you over to our friends at UCCU. They are wanting to help you supercharge your savings.
UCCU is offering high-rate savings options with yields up to 5.5%. All you do is go to uccu.com and select a high-rate savings option to do just what you said, supercharge your savings.
You're going to get a much bigger return on your savings right now. It's a savings certificate, which means you make one deposit up front and your money grows over a fixed period of time. So you can have that grow over 5 years, but UCCU has created some very short-term savings certificates with high yields, short like 6 months, 9 months, or a year.
So you decide how long do you want to put that money. You deposit money, a one-time only deposit, and then you let it stay in. The longer it stays in there, the higher the interest rate you earn.
And if you need immediate access to your money, UCCU's Money Market will give you a high yield and anytime access.
UCCU, you're going to love where you bank.
Here's a message just for the attorneys out there. So you passed the bar, joined a firm, or even built your own. Now are you finding out that you're doing more administration than actual law practice? Lexicon can help. Lexicon is a legal technology provider with over a decade of experience streamlining administrative tasks like timekeeping, billing, and more, so you can focus on maximizing billable hours and increasing client satisfaction. Call 855-4-LEXICON or visit lexiconservices.com/go to learn more.
Have you ever noticed that when the afternoon light hits your floors, you can see everything, including dust?
So much dust.
And that poor dust gets kicked up into the air, compromising the quality of air you and your family breathe.
Eesh.
Swiffer Heavy Duty Sweeper is the fast and easy way to clean your floors, with ultra-thick pads that trap and lock dust before it gets in the air. Just a couple minutes a day.
And dust is gone.
Swiffer Heavy Duty Sweeper. Proud partner of the American Lung Association.
My name's Osborne, Josh Osborne, and I'm so excited to announce our 00 summer sale here at Volkswagen Southtown.
Summers are for thrills, chills, and hot deals. Get a new high-tech VW for nothing down and no payments for 90 days. Our 00 agents are standing by to make sure you pay nothing down and have no payments for 3 months, so you can achieve your top secret mission this summer.
Come see why we're Utah's #1 Volkswagen dealer. Get to VWSouthtown.com.
2022 VW rankings. Financing through VCI on select models OAC. See dealer for details.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's high-yield savings certificates. Here's Ricky Meese.
Back to a quiet commute on all the Valley freeways and our main secondaries, even where we had the vehicle fire and roadside grass fire at Bangerter Highway and California Avenue. Plan your Bear Lake vacation and check out their fun events happening all summer long. County fairs, Bear Lake monster swims, and the Caribbean Cruise Motorcycle Rally. For more information, visit bearlake.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. The heat continues this week. Temperatures in the upper 90s almost every day. Conditions will be a little windy, but no rain moving in. Right now it's 91 degrees and sunny at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com. Your all-day companion for news.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm Scott Simpson. I'm here with Leah Murray. We're filling in for Boyd today.
That's right.
And I think we're killing it, right?
Of course we're killing it.
On a high note. We have been talking about two governors, the tale of two governors relative to the state of Utah. Our own governor, who took to the airwaves nationally on Face the Nation. We talked about that in the first segment. And then we just spent a segment talking about Gavin Newsom, who was here Saturday night holding a fundraiser, turning on the vacuum in Park City, right?
Right. Now, the thing I think is interesting about this, and this is why I wanted to get in the weeds and listeners just go with me and Scott on this, is when I was growing up, all the presidents were governors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was Jimmy Carter, it was Ronald Reagan.
Sure.
Before that, it was Richard Nixon, right? It's Bill Clinton, it's George W. Bush. So the answer kind of was the NGA, where these governors hang out, right? I just imagine.
Sure.
It's like the nerdiest Comic-Con ever, the NGA. So these governors are hanging out, talking about national politics, which then platforms them, right, for a national race. So the answer kind of was, if you're going to be president, you probably had to be a governor. But recently that hasn't been true, right? Like it's Obama who was a senator, then it's Trump who was a real estate developer and
right.
and then it's Biden who is a VP and then a senator. So a little bit it's out of step, but don't you think that when governors talk about stuff, like those are bellwethers for what the party messaging is going to be of the major national parties, and they're kind of bellwethers of what the conversations are nationally?
Yeah, you're talking about a distinction of kind of the races or the seats that they sit in.
Right.
The executives of these states do what executives do and actually have to organize government and make it function. Those that come from the legislative branch have the ability to just sort of sit off the sideline and yell at the at the game, right? That's sort of their role. And so I think it's watered downhill for a lot of governors to sort of feel like they're on a higher road and maybe more capable. And oftentimes, if you said in history, that's allowed them to parlay that into national leadership.
Right. And well, I think the answer kind of, and I'm not picking on legislatures because my goodness, I love our legislatures, but like, I love how you just said that. A little bit, legislatures are about finding your coalition, right? Building across lines, really incremental work, and then howling at the moon when you have to, right?
And punching your governor in the face, right? That's part of what they do.
Doing that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But governors have to actually do the work, right? So that, to a certain extent, if you had min quals for president, I don't know, like maybe governor is the right pool to look at. And then I just kind of think about Governor Cox and Governor Newsom. So let's just talk about that. So let's talk about Governor Cox. Let me pick on him first, and then we can come back at Governor Newsom. So Governor Cox, we listened to it earlier. He name-dropped Abraham Lincoln and Ronald Reagan in his Face the Nation speech. So I was thinking, Scott, and I'm wondering what you think about, is him signaling the kind of Republican Party I would like to have, not I, but like Spencer Cox would like to have, is one that Abraham Lincoln and Ronald Reagan, had they woken up in the zombie apocalypse, maybe would know they were still in the party, right?
Yeah.
And do you think it's the right move, and is it a good move?
I don't know. I actually, honestly don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
I think aspirationally, there are a lot of people in this party, the Republican Party, that are worn out. I think, the vitriol, the hyperbole, the sort of blood sport, the way it's been played for the last decade or so is exhausting. And so there is this desire, I think, to retrench back to a more principled sort of communication style that is less bloody. You think about Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan having a sandwich in the Rose Garden. You know what I mean?
Right.
Back to those days. And I think he's hearkening back to that, and he's picked the right ponies, I think, in Lincoln, and the father of the GOP, and Reagan, who was sort of the modern father of GOP and the last real, universally accepted and liked president for that party. But the question is, and you asked it in that first segment, do people really want that? I mean, I think there are a lot of people that enjoy this. It's become the new pastime, right? We used to do baseball as a country. Our new pastime is politics and getting in the mud and wrestling through these issues. He may appeal to a certain number. Clearly, he's appealing to a certain number.
Right.
I feel like I want to respond to a better way. But I'm not sure everybody does in the party. And party politics has always been sort of where the real butt kicking happens,
Yeah.
And so he has to, both of these governors we're talking about have to go through that machinery to get where they want to go.
All right, so talking about that, in the conversation we had with Ben earlier about Governor Newsom, he said that Governor Newsom alluded to Spencer Cox and talked about Governor Cox as being, originally they thought him as a different kind of Republican, which is somewhat corroborated because in 2022, Tucker Carlson criticized Cox for being too Newsom-like, right? Like to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
But that now they see him looking like the national party. But I guess I disagree. We were playing some clips from Governor Cox and Face the Nation. I don't think he sounds like Ron DeSantis. I see quite a bit of daylight between him and what I hear, not just in the vitriol, but actually in the policy messaging that's happening with the, Ron DeSantis kind of Republican governor messaging going on when he's running for president. But am I wrong?
Well, I don't think you're wrong. I just wonder if it's nuanced and so nuanced that rank and file sort of, folks that are watching the networks
Yeah.
can really sort through that distinction. I think it's much easier for them to pigeonhole into brands that those hosts try to put our policymakers in.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about that because that was something I thought was interesting. So I'm on social media. I'm one of the people, I guess Spencer Cox is saying, is addicted to it. I'm on it all weekend. And I'm usually on it for sports and politics. So I want to be clear. My addiction is, it's baseball and Formula One, and then it's Governor Cox, right? Like doing whatever he does in politics. And one
That's
of the things,
very highbrow, by the way.
Right,
Baseball, Formula One.
Did I just bougie myself
Yeah, you
right
did,
now?
indeed,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
What I noticed over the weekend was Governor Cox actually tweeted the video of the Face the Nation, and my impression of it. So I'm not quoting it directly. My impression of it was he was basically like, here's what we actually talked about. We'll see what actually, makes it to the cutting room floor. And I just think that was interesting, Scott. And it spoke a little bit to, the state of the relationship between national media, the hosts of those national shows. Made me think of it because you were just saying like pigeonholing these, caricatures. They want the people to be caricatures, right? And I just wonder about that too. Like, I thought that was a smart move by the governor to say, here's what I actually said. Does that make sense? But do you think that makes sense? Or do you think it's about maybe the media is playing a role in the thing he's trying to fix? So part of it is, let me just share this with you because not only am I going to fix the Republican Party and make us like Reagan again, right? I'm going to also fix this relationship maybe by bringing some transparency to it.
Yeah, and I know you see this, but think about this. 10 years ago, Governor Cox would have been subject to whatever the producers did, right? And we've democratized the channels, and he can now directly communicate and deliver his message to his constituency very easily, and even beyond his constituency through NGA or whoever else may have retweeted what he said,
right?
And really steer the outcome of whatever the producers ended up slicing. And I suspect... I credit it to just really good campaign strategy. We talked about it in the first segment. He did a really good job from a communications perspective of taking a question and bending it the direction that he wanted it to go and needed it to go, and then preempting, inoculating himself against whatever the potential editing room floor sort of outcome might be when this story actually airs and getting in front of it. I just think really smart skill set, using the full range of tools that he has to control the message. And you couldn't do this 10 years ago.
Yeah, and that's partially, I love how you just said that, because a number of times in my career where I'm like reading something and I'm thinking, I didn't say that, right? Like right? That has been written into that newspaper, and I know I didn't say that. But you're right. Oh my gosh, I hadn't thought of it that way, Scott. But like with social media, I can go, no, here's what I actually said.
Oh yeah.
I brought the receipts to the conversation.
Right, for sure. And that's a gift for elected officials.
Yeah, no, exactly. All right, so coming up, Scott, let's have a conversation about the June jobs report, which came out on Friday, and what it tells us about the economy and where interest rates are headed.
Well, that was nice while it lasted.
Here along the Wasatch, partly cloudy to mostly sunny and hot.
Looks like the upper 90s are here for a while. Listen each day to plan, and so you know when the heat is ready to break. Traffic and weather together every 10 minutes on the 9s, mornings and afternoons on KSL News Radio.
Do you know why more homeowners choose Any Hour Services for help when it's time to replace their air conditioners? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and the main reasons people choose Any Hour Services is because of our people, processes, and convenience. People tell us all the time that there's just something different about having an Any Hour Services technician in their home. That's why most of our over 18,000 Google reviews mention our technicians by name. Another reason is our 7-step install process that we call the Any Hour Difference. It all starts with a needs analysis where you explain what you like and dislike about your current system. This helps us design and size a system that fits your comfort and efficiency preferences as well as your home's airflow requirements. As for convenience, most of our installs are completed in one day. We also have flexible, no money down financing options available, even if you've been told no in the past. So if you've been thinking about getting a new air conditioner, call Any Hour Services and schedule a free estimate today. Google Any Hour Services or schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
We're going abroad for the first time in years. To Spain. So we started using Babbel.
And started learning Spanish fast.
With Babbel, you can start having conversations in another language in just 3 weeks.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind.
In just 3 weeks, we're starting to have conversations in Spanish. Gracias, Babbel.
Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. That's Babbel.com.
Hi, everyone. It's Congressman Blake Moore here. It's been a busy summer in Congress, working to address our debt and deficit crisis on the Ways and Means and Budget Committees and meeting with constituents across the district. My team and I have also been introducing key legislation that will incentivize charitable giving, improve our foster care and adoption systems, support small business owners, and much more. I'm looking forward to sharing these updates and more during my upcoming telephone town hall. Please join me on Thursday, July 13th at 6 p.m. for an interactive teletown hall where I will take your questions and engage on topics that matter most to Utahns. Tune in on Thursday, July 13th at 6 p.m. by dialing in at 833-305-1678. That's 833-305-1678. Learn more on my website at blakemore.house.gov. Thank you, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Paid for by official funds authorized by the House of Representatives.
When words come out of our mouths and everything sounds fine, no one bats an eye. But if things come out a little jumbled or letters sound different than most, there's speech therapy. But did you know that speech therapy is used for more than just stuttering or disfluency? From articulation to expressive and receptive language to a simple act of swallowing that most of us take for granted, speech therapy can do amazing things for you, your health, and of course your sense of self. That's why Summit Speech Therapy is here. Summit Speech Therapy works with people of all ages, from infants and toddlers who have a difficult time feeding or eating, TBI, stroke, or coma patients, to children and adults with speech problems. So much of it is all related, and Summit Speech Therapy can help. Summit works with all insurance companies as well as private pay options, and the experience can be life-changing. With clinics up and down the Wasatch Front, including Murray, with no long waiting for an appointment. For more, visit summitslp.com. That's summitslp.com.
The Zero Res deal is on. Today and tomorrow only, get a 4th room free. 20% off odor treatments and a free laundry service. Call for all the details, zerores.com.
At KSL News Radio, we have a 30-year legacy of honoring Utah teachers, but we can't do it without your help. Please tell us about an important teacher in your life on the KSL Teacher Tribute Wall, presented by Cypress Credit Union. Each month, one lucky teacher wins a $500 gift card from Cypress Credit Union, a $250 gift card to Harmon's, plus season tickets to Hale Center Theater. Say thanks to your teacher today at kslnewsradio.com/teacher from Cypress Credit Union and KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, police are now asking people between 5th South and Indiana Avenue to check their doorbell cameras. They're looking for a driver who hit and killed a man on a bike early yesterday morning. Second, almost 24 inmates got their college degrees today at the Utah State Prison, and studies show these graduates are less likely to reoffend. Third, several towns in New York's Hudson Valley declaring states of emergency as torrential rains bring catastrophic flooding. Right now it's 91 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Good afternoon, and we're going to try to stay with Boyd's dividing rage from reason, right, Scott?
No doubt about it.
You've got me, Leah Murray, alongside Scott Simpson, filling in for Boyd Matheson today. So, Scott, I feel like economists, I don't know what. I don't know what I feel about economists, but I think like trying to predict what is going on with the economy right now seems like maybe impossible, if not a really hard thing to do.
Somehow, economists have a hall pass, though. Every presentation I've ever been in, I work in the financial services industry.
Right.
My full-time job is with the
Right.
credit union industry here. And every economist presentation I've ever been in, they're right. No matter what the outcome was, they always find this way of being right. And yet, everything I've ever witnessed, I would declare that they're wrong. And this current sort of condition that we're in is just blowing me away. I don't get it. I'm confused. We've had this runaway inflation, which we sort of put the economy on crack for a while by dumping so much cash in. That created, this runaway inflation. We all the issues related to the pandemic, and it's coming out of that. But now trying to all of the levers that these policy organizations are now pulling, somehow we've been rooting for a recession, which is counterintuitive as a human being.
Right.
We want the crash, and yet we're not seeing the intended effects, I think, of these these rate increases.
Right, like none of the causal variables seem to be doing the things you'd expect, right,
Yeah,
to happen.
So we
Right.
have this jobs report come out. I don't know how to make sense of it. I have no idea what to do with it.
Well, let's see. We've got Mark Hamrick, who's the Washington Bureau Chief and Senior Economic Analyst for Bankrate. Mark, welcome to the show.
It's good to be with you. You guys coming in hot there, with strong opinions, and say you don't know anything about what you're talking about. So my mind is spinning at this point.
Mark, I'm sorry.
I'm just intensely frustrated because it seems like the rule book has been torn up. Help us through this jobs report and whether or not it makes a difference on the economy.
Well, let me ask you this. When did you last experience a pandemic before 2020 in the context of a globalized economy?
Okay, fair
Yeah,
question.
Neither of us did because we're not.
No,
that never happened.
But
Exactly.
by the
So,
same rate, Fed policy and trying to use the blunt instrument of interest rates sort of seems sort of unpredictable in the best of times.
Well, it's the primary tool, and essentially, let me back away a little bit from that, from a couple of vantage points, and that is to say, the Federal Reserve has something in common with the business that we are have the pleasure of operating within, and that is operating within the context of broadly the public's low trust of institutions. Mm-hmm. And so I think that in some iterations, it might be worth celebrating institutions that have had some success with avoiding calamities in the U.S. economy for many years now. That's one of the reasons why the central bank was founded more than a century ago. We were flirting with what the then Treasury Secretary said in early 2020 could have been 25% unemployment. We were at 14.7 and sharply pulled back, in part because, as you appropriately say, a lot was thrown at the downturn in the pandemic. But let's fast forward to the moment, because I think that's where you want your focus to be, and that is what's going on with the job market. And the good news is that we're still dealing with historically low unemployment. The nation's unemployment rate at 3.6% as of the latest data. Hiring is absolutely slowing, but to your point about monetary policy, the job market has been viewed as too hot. The number of job openings in this country well the level that was before the pandemic, and so we added 209,000 jobs on the month. We averaged almost 400,000 jobs a month in all of 2022. So I think further moderation is the benchmark expectation here going forward. And the real question that is an unanswerable question right now is whether we have sort of a dictionary definition of a recession in the U.S. over the next 6 to 12 months. And we'll only know that once we get past that time.
I know, and I do apologize for picking on economists at the top of this segment. I appreciate so much you helping us figuring out what's going on, Mark. Can you talk to us about, so I love that, the Fed has done a really good job of avoiding calamity and going through, I love how you framed it. This has been 3 years of not knowing which causal variable actually would do something and which lever is the right lever to pull. Can you speak a little bit about what's going on with these job numbers and why maybe the Fed is not raising interest rates? They decided not to at their June meeting. Are they kind of tracking that maybe something's turning in the economy, that the job numbers are showing us, that maybe things are slowing down?
Well, we'll know more about that on Wednesday when we get the consumer price index. And I think, that's what the Fed is primarily focused on right now. And with respect to the job market, we are absolutely seeing moderating hiring. And so to the degree that there are a lot of different variables, as you say, but to the degree that a hot job market presents a risk to the further inflaming inflation, I think the Fed feels like, we're seeing wage increases that are still substantial, 4.4% annual wage increases in this latest snapshot. But on the inflation front, a year ago in June, we had the consumer price index posting an annual increase of 9.1%. That was the worst in 40 years. The snapshot we're expected to see this week is going to bring that down, if expectations are even closer to 3%, having been at 4%, a year-over-year increase last month. So I would say that we're in the process of seeing some resolution of all that. Along with the pandemic, by the way, let's not forget that within the context of that globalized economy, Russia invaded Ukraine. That disrupted the supplies of food and energy, particularly for Europe, which is closer to the front there, so to speak. Fortunately, in the United States, something to celebrate. We're able to produce more of our own food and energy, and that's given us essentially a bit of a wall with respect to the sustainability of those very important commodities, but also keeping some of the worst inflation actually at bay overseas.
Mark, so what's your next prediction for the Fed? What's the next move, and when might they make it?
Well, this is one of the most transparent leaderships of a Federal Reserve that we've had in many years. And so they're telling us, and they told us at the last meeting, that we should expect that there's a possibility of 2 more small interest rate hikes between now and the end of the year. And financial markets are penciling in essentially a rate hike at the next policy setting meeting, which is on the 26th, or I think 16 days away from today. So unless something drastically changes between now and then, I think we should expect that we'll see 1 more rate hike there, maybe another between now and the end of the year. But I think perhaps most importantly, if everything behaves at least close to as we currently expect, with 500 basis points in tightening behind, that suggests that the Fed's job is largely done moving interest rates higher, and we'll see whether inflation continues to behave better.
Mark Hamrick, Senior Economic Analyst for Bankrate, thank you for jumping on Inside Sources.
It's great to be with you, Leah and Scott. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, but he's not wrong, right, Scott? I mean, the answer is...
He's absolutely correct. Right. I mean, coming out of a pandemic, we've experienced things that we've never predicted, like would happen in our lifetimes over the last 4 years. I mean, and so he's right. I think there was probably decent governance. I think they're doing what they can, but it just strikes me that we're not following the rule book. Like the economy is not following the rule book as these levers are being pulled.
Right. I don't know if you ever watch like little meme videos, right? And there's like a fabulous one where the kids like fall and the like mattress falls and then the kid falls. They're like, what's been happening? There's a pandemic, then there's a war in Russia, then there's like, like all these things just keep crashing. And to a certain extent, oh my gosh, I was so compelled by his point, Scott. This Fed avoided calamity.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, so to a certain extent, we do not trust institutions. That is true. We've got a real distrust, I think, writ large in our country of the media, of our government, of all of these things. And the Fed is just doing its job, like
That's
the whole
true.
time.
That's true. But I actually, I would like to interject a little commercial for local institutions, because I do think it, we always talk about the economy as the billions of decisions, not necessarily what big policymakers make from the top.
Yeah.
But it's what happens at the retail frontage across America. And that's been outstanding.
All right, so coming back after the break, listeners, we're going to have a conversation about NATO and President Biden being at that summit. Stay with us.
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7 FM. KSL News Radio, your all-day companion for news.
Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour. Salt Lake City police are on the scene at the Loft clothing store in Sugar House after a car drove through the building. Police say no one was injured and there are no impacts on traffic on 2100 South. They're investigating the case. Utah's consumer sentiment rose in June to its highest level in more than a year, according to a Kempsey Gardner Policy Institute survey. Natalie Gonchor, director of the Gardner Institute, says the Utah economy continues to demonstrate resiliency with low unemployment and strong job growth. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Press Secretary Matthew Miller telling reporters that key allies were not caught off guard by the U.S.'s decision to provide cluster bombs to Ukraine.
It's something we've consulted with allies and partners, and we understand that different countries will come to different conclusions.
That was Miller speaking at the State Department today. Your money at this moment, we've had a little bit of an uptick. The Dow has gained 211 points, the S&P is up 10, and the NASDAQ has gained 24 points. Coming up, we're going to take a look at how long this hot weather is going to last. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:01.
Mornings can be hard enough, just getting yourself going.
We try to make it a little easier with news and weather from comfortable, trusted anchors and reporters.
Join us on Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9
on KSL News Radio.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year, $500,000 policy for nearly $50 a month. Then we called SelectQuote. SelectQuote found us identical coverage for only $19 a month, a savings of $369 a year.
Whether you need a $500,000 policy or a $5 million policy, SelectQuote could save you more than 50% on term life insurance. For your free quote, call SelectQuote at 1-800-330-1991. That's 1-800-330-1991. Or go to SelectQuote.com. That's 1-800-330-1991. SelectQuote. We shop, you save. Full details on example policies at SelectQuote.com/commercials.
At Intermountain Primary Children's Hospital, we made a bold promise to build the nation's model health system for children. Join us in realizing our vision for the future of pediatric care. So together, we can expand primary children's impact and ensure every child has access to the right care at the right place at the right time. For a century, Primary Children's has kept the child first and always. Help us continue to do so for the next 100 years. To get involved, visit primarypromise.org.
It's camping season and exciting adventures are waiting for you. Don't miss out on another summer of memories and find your next outdoor adventure at Motorsportsland. Get away from the stress of the city in our newly designed Colorado 17 BHC travel trailer for only $16,995 with payment options under $200 a month. It's got bunks and sleeps up to 6 in a super lightweight design towable by most vehicles. Or our fully loaded 31-foot MPG travel trailer with a huge separate bunkhouse and 2 slide-outs at dealer cost for only $38,900 with payment options as low as $400 a month. We have excellent financing as well as zero down options. At Motorsportsland, we advertise real prices and don't charge thousands of dollars in additional required fees. Inventory at these prices is limited, so come in now and let Motorsportsland help you get away.
Let Motorsportsland help you get away.
Motorsportsland.com.
We're going abroad for the first time in years. To Spain. So we started using Babbel.
And started learning Spanish fast.
With Babbel, you can start having conversations in another language in just 3 weeks.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind.
In just 3 weeks, we're starting to have conversations in Spanish. Gracias, Babbel.
Babbel, language for life. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. That's BABBEL.com.
Any Hour Services can make sure your AC keeps you cool this summer. Whether you need a tune-up, repair, or just a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's high-yield savings certificates. Here's Ricky Meese.
Southbound I-15 all jammed up in Midvale. It's due to UHP actually temporarily stopping all traffic. Looks like they may had to have gotten something off the roadway, debris or something that was causing an issue. But this is southbound I-15 after 7200 South. Even though they're starting to let traffic go through again, it's only slowly, and that's why we have backups to the South Interchange in Murray. From now through July, get triple rewards points on gas and travel with a Visa Platinum Rewards card from Cyprus Credit Union. Visit cypruscu.com to learn more. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather. This warm front, this heat wave, is going to stick around for this week. We're in the high 90s for our highs for this whole week. The only day we may not get that high is Thursday, but skies are clear. We're going to have some breezy conditions as well. Right now it's 92 degrees and sunny at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, your all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome to hour number 2 of the expanded Inside Sources. I'm Scott Simpson here with Dr. Leah Murray.
Hello.
We're filling in with Boyd. at Inside Sources, which airs, incidentally, every weekday from 1 to 3 here on KSL. And, I love Boyd's show. I love what it stands for. I love how he does it.
I love the work that he does, I think, in this space, right? Like of trying to make things more reasonable, more pleasant, right? More like that everything is not that loud cacophony that sometimes the world can become.
There's so many hot issues in the country today, and the way that we talk about it is significant. And so I don't know why I just went into the Boyd Matheson fan club. Here we are filling in.
But
for
I'm
him,
with you.
It's so true. But speaking of all of the issues of the day, we've got world leaders gathering in the NATO summit in, I think, is it Lithuania, and starting tomorrow, President Biden will be there, and they've got a lot of things going, and we've got new news that has just popped over the last little bit.
That's right. So my understanding, and we've got someone with us who will help us break it all down, is that Sweden is now set to join NATO because Turkey has approved. We've got Laura Kelly, the foreign policy reporter for The Hill. Laura, do I have that right? And welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Yes, very, very exciting breaking news happening over the last hour where Turkish President Erdogan has agreed to move forward on ratifying Sweden's accession to NATO. So there still is an additional step that needs to happen. The protocols of Sweden's accession needs to be ratified by the Turkish parliament, and the Turkish president has held back from sending these protocols to the parliament over all these different objections. But today, hours before the summit is expected to kick off in earnest on Tuesday, Turkish President Erdogan said, okay, we're going to send the protocols to parliament. We're going to get on the roadway to Sweden becoming the 32nd member of NATO.
So, Laura, I had read a piece written by you a few days ago that the United States was, I like the headline of your piece, was in a mad dash, right, to get Sweden into NATO over opposition by Turkey. So what does it mean for the United States and its foreign policy, ability, I guess, is what I'm asking? Like, did they get what they wanted? Is this working? Were they able to get it done?
Yes, I think President Biden will look to this as a key victory. The U.S. has been really lobbying for Sweden to join NATO. It is described as kind of a dream member for the alliance. It has a really high level of military capabilities, very advanced military, and also looking to contribute economically to the alliance. So in general, there's a lot of practical reasons why Sweden its entrance into the alliance is very beneficial. But symbolically, moving forward on getting Sweden to get into the alliance after a year of delay by Turkey is also a signal of the solidarity of the alliance. And that's really important for President Biden in particular, as he wants to project this unity of NATO in the face of Russian President Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine. President Biden said in an interview with CNN on Sunday that he views Putin's war in Ukraine, that a major part of that was an effort to break up the NATO alliance, and his whole mission is really to make the alliance stronger.
It seems like for the last 30 years, we have not, one could question the effectiveness of NATO or the purpose of NATO, but certainly over the course of the last year, that seems very clear to me, and the utility of such an organization, and it makes sense why these countries would want to come in. Ukraine also was interested in obviously pursuing a NATO alliance, but that's a bridge too far for the administration?
It appears to be. There's a lot of different levels of kind of opposition towards making a full concrete commitment that Ukraine is going to come into the alliance. For President Biden and for NATO members like Germany in particular, they say it's not good to allow in a member who is actively engaged in a defensive war that is at war. They also say that Ukraine still has reforms that need to be completed. They want to protect kind of the integrity of the process of getting into NATO. They say those kind of things. But Ukraine supporters in Washington the Eastern European countries that are part of NATO, and even France have said, no, we need to do more to show that Ukraine will inevitably become part of NATO, because that's the only way to really push back against Russian President Putin and prevent him from launching a new round of aggression against Ukraine years down the road.
So, Laura, I want to just stay here with Scott's point about the usefulness or the utility maybe of NATO. Back in 2014, members of NATO had pledged to increase their minimum defense spending to 2% of their individual national GDP. And for the first time ever, just last month, Germany actually did that and met this goal. So do you see that? I mean, is that evidence for this is a really robust alliance that is actually functioning better now?
I'm not.
You can say no
because I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not the most 100% expert on NATO, but we do see this much bigger push among NATO becoming more active. Germany has committed 4,000 troops to go to Lithuania's border, and Germany's whole kind of pivot towards its support, more military support for Ukraine, is another element of kind of the strength of the alliance and how Russia's war in Ukraine has changed the dynamic. And another interesting or very important aspect of this summit in Vilnius this year, it's the 74th annual summit, is members are supposed to organize their consensus around what is going to be Europe's security architecture going forward, taking into account that Russia is prosecuting this war in Ukraine, and what are the next years going to look like, and how they support Ukraine and how they bolster their own defenses and shore up the borders with Russia to deter any aggression from spilling over into NATO's borders. And this, in turn, will lead to an even bigger summit in Washington next year for the 75th anniversary of NATO's founding.
Laura, can I just pivot just for a second? We've got about a minute left. Putin and Prigozhin, this thing just continues to baffle me. And the timing relative to the NATO summit, we're learning that they may have actually met after the coup attempt or whatever that was. What impact is the events in Russia and the having the Wagner Group sort of appear to be on its own? What is the impact relative to NATO and these decisions?
Yeah, to the extent that NATO members will address this, I'm almost certain that they'll point to it as Putin's power weakening, internal divisions within Russia related to its war against Ukraine as faltering, as a failure. They'll really use this to drive home the message that Ukraine is winning, that the support for Ukraine is necessary to continue to exploit these kind of fractures that Russia is suffering right now. But also, there's the element of if Russia is crumbling from within, let Russia crumble from within, and let's focus on making sure our house is strong and in order.
Laura Kelly, foreign policy reporter for The Hill, thanks for jumping on Inside Sources today.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, we're going to talk about the Utah 2nd Congressional District primary, and the ballot is beginning to form for the Republican Party.
No story is too small.
There's a moose on the loose.
Or too big.
A moose who frequents the South Weber Canal, drawing concern from the locals.
She just looked super weak.
Right now, it's better to leave her alone.
Tim and Amanda bring you stories from across the state and around the planet. Be informed, stay informed.
That is one of the big game animals that the division wants you to notify them about because it does need to be relocated.
Utah's Morning News, weekdays 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
When words come out of our mouths and everything sounds fine, no one bats an eye. But if things come out a little jumbled or letters sound different than most, there's speech therapy. But did you know that speech therapy is used for more than just stuttering or disfluency? From articulation to expressive and receptive language to a simple act of swallowing that most of us take for granted, speech therapy can do amazing things for you, your health, and of course your sense of self. That's why Summit Speech Therapy is here. Summit Speech Therapy works with people of all ages, from infants and toddlers who have a difficult time feeding or eating, TBI, stroke, or coma patients, to children and adults with speech problems. So much of it is all related, and Summit Speech Therapy can help. Summit works with all insurance companies as well as private pay options, and the experience can be life-changing. With clinics up and down the Wasatch Front, including Murray, with no long waiting for an appointment. For more, visit summitslp.com. That's summitslp.com.
Do you have an IRA or 401k? It's natural to think of this as being your money, right? But remember, you still have to pay taxes when you withdraw this money in retirement. And you could be paying a lot more in taxes on these accounts than you know. A lot more. Learn the strategies that can help you reduce or eliminate your taxes in retirement. Don't miss a special edition of Retirement Solutions Radio this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, right here on KSL News Radio 1027.
It's summertime and you should be enjoying the weather, spending time with friends, hanging out with family. You should not have to be stuck doing chores all day. Zero Res has pulled together the ultimate cleaning package to give you back more of that precious time. Carpet cleaning, pet odor removal, and free laundry service. That's right. Zero Res partnered with Unload, Utah's premier valet laundry service. The best, no residue cleaning from Zero Res, and laundry is covered too. When you schedule your carpet cleaning with Zero Res today, you'll get a room cleaned for free, 20% off pet odor removal, and a free laundry service from Unload. Free room of carpet, 20% off pet odors, and free laundry service from Unload. Get on the schedule now. This special offer ends tomorrow and won't be seen again until next summer. Your fourth room clean free, 20% off pet odor removal, and a free laundry service from Unload. Details, restrictions, and to schedule, visit zerores.com.
Hi, Doug Wright, and let's talk about your barbecue. And let's talk about your barbecue skills. Maybe that old barbecue of yours was buried under the snow and you're just now in the process of getting it functional again. Now, we know you grill a pretty mean steak, but how about if we just all relax? It's July. We've been doing a lot of celebrating lately. It's time to get into Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Why not let them grill the perfect steak for you and for your family? Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, they have two locations, Hotel Park City and, of course, downtown Salt Lake City. A lot of people like to kind of mesh things together. They're going to a ball game, going to a movie, or they're going to go up hiking in Summit County in the Park City area. Well, they make the reservation for that evening at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, and you're going to have the best steak you have ever had. And the desserts, the side dishes, the other entrees too. It's Hotel Park City and 275 Southwest Temple in downtown Salt Lake City.
Advanced Window Products. Affordable windows from their factory to your front door in 8 weeks. Guaranteed. 801-850-9100 or advancedwindowsusa.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, Salt Lake City police are on the scene at the Loft clothing store in Sugar House after a car drove through the building. No one was injured. Second, Utah's consumer sentiment rose in June to its highest level in more than a year, according to a Chem C. Gardner Policy Institute survey. Third, the White House says allies were not caught off guard by the U.S.'s decision to provide cluster bombs to the Ukraine. Right now, it's 92 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
So, sitting in for Boyd Matheson because he is out and about today is me, Leah Murray, alongside my good friend Scott Simpson. And I think we're endeavoring to meet his challenge of separating rage from reason.
Yeah, I haven't had an ounce of rage today.
We've been doing really well.
We've done our best.
Even at The Economist, maybe we were
well,
not raging.
He may think I was raging, but I don't think I was.
All right, I want to pick on you a little bit and talk about something really closer to home. I think one of the most interesting, I said fun last week and I was scolded a little bit for saying fun, so we'll just go with interesting. Local stories happening here in Utah is the special election over in Congressional District 2, Scott, because I'm sorry, I just think it's so much fun to watch. And I know it's not fun for the people involved.
That's fun for you. You're a political spectator sport.
Yeah, right. And I have no horse in the race. Does that make sense? So
Sure.
maybe there's no like personal investment.
Mhm.
I'm super excited because we've got two candidates in the primary. Celeste Malloy, the Republican nominee out of convention, and Becky Edwards, who qualified for the ballot after gathering enough signatures. And I'm super excited because they're both women. So a little bit I'm liking that.
Yeah.
So I got that kind of vested interest in that, the fact that all the parties right now have somehow nominated women to run for office. And I'm kind of super proud of Utah that happened. I don't think it happens often.
Yeah, it's a shame that we're celebrating that. It should have been broken down a long time ago.
One
but
would
it
think.
is outstanding.
But I think it's super cool, right?
Yeah,
So for me, I'm like, whatever happens, I'm happy right
Absolutely.
now. But there is another candidate that, as of this moment, I was kind of looking, Scott, so you might have more information than I do, who submitted signatures, and that's Bruce Huff. But I have not heard that he has actually qualified yet. So we have confirmation that Becky Edwards qualified,
Right.
which I think means the LG has vetted all the signatures and they are legit. And so she's on a primary ballot going against Celeste Malloy, who came out of convention. But I don't think Bruce Huff has qualified yet. Am I right? Do you know something I don't know?
I have not heard of the certification of the signatures, and it's interesting because, prior to last year's Senate campaign, Mike Lee's Senate campaign, I would have told you that I thought it was impossible in a statewide or 1/4 of the statewide to gather sufficient that more than one candidate could gather sufficient signatures. Like I felt like the limit of 7,000 was sufficiently high enough to make it very difficult for more than one candidate to actually
interesting.
Get it done.
So actually there's a bit of a buffer, if you will, if too many people get involved using SB 54.
You can only a voter can only sign one
right
form, right? And so because of that limitation, whoever races to get there first has the advantage. Because whoever's coming up, they may knock on a door of somebody that's already signed, and when it go, and they don't know that until they go up to the lieutenant governor's office, and the second signature is invalidated because that person showed up on the first person. So, I always thought that was a really high bar to get over.
Okay.
Now we saw both Allie Isom and Becky Edwards last time jump over that bar. We'll see. It'll be very interesting to see. This is a sidebar, Leah, but if the legislature reacts to that, because there's this intent to kind of protect conventions a little bit, and it'd be interesting to see if there are attempts to raise that threshold above 7,000 or 28 as a result of these multiple candidates qualifying.
Right. So when you get a big enough N in the elections of candidates running, you'll get a moment where you're like, that's the critical mass, right? So then we set that number just a titch above that critical mass.
This is too easy. We can't have too many people getting into the arena. We've got to make this hard. But so that'll be very interesting. So Bruce Huff is sort of waiting for that to happen, that certification process. It's fascinating. I think maybe one of the reasons it may be taking a little bit longer is they're having to check it against what's already happened. And they've got sophisticated technology, barcodes and all that sort of thing that help that move along. But this will have impact on the two candidates that have qualified for sure.
All right, so let's talk right there for a moment. So let's assume that Bruce Huff does get in, right? So whatever happens, and maybe while you're listening, we're talking, like we might get breaking news, but let's assume that he does qualify. I think it complicates things for the Republican Party. And then I'm going to lay out a case that I think how it complicates it. And then you tell me if I'm right or if I've kind of got it wrong.
Okay.
So I think that a Bruce Huff candidacy would complicate things for a Celeste Malloy candidacy. I think Republican convention goers gave the seat, if not the seat, but gave the position on the ballot to Celeste Malloy. I think Bruce Huff is known as being a Republican Party member. He's, I think, the RNC delegate, right, for the GOP in the state of Utah. And so I feel like people, when they went to a ballot and they're seeing three names, so it's Becky Edwards, Bruce Huff, Celeste Malloy, I feel like the same kind of people who are voting in that primary are going to like Bruce Huff and Celeste Malloy. I think they split the ticket, and that gives Becky Edwards a win in the primary.
Okay, I have a follow-up question for you.
Okay.
Why do you attach Bruce Huff to Celeste Malloy? Is it because he held a party position?
Correct.
So he's a product of the party structure.
Correct. So I'm going to say in kind of an information low environment, meaning I don't know a ton of things.
Okay.
So I'm just a primary voter, right? So I'm not a convention goer. I'm not a delegate who's getting all the insider information. I'm going to look at his bio and say, okay, this is someone who is a Republican who the party must like because he's been in party, I don't know if it's leadership, Scott, but he's been party chosen.
Yeah.
So I feel like that reads to the, less super involved, the primary voters, as someone who looks like Celeste Malloy.
Yeah, that's a good question. He's been the national. Well, I first met Bruce the day that he was elected chairman of the party back in 1991, I think.
Okay.
He
Deep
was
tracks.
He was chair of the GOP, kind of connected to the Bennett world back in those days, if my memory serves. And, fast forward, he's made a couple of attempts at things along the way, potential candidacies. And then he's been the national committeeman for the Republican Party. Every state gets to elect a man and a woman, and then the chair of the party are the three members that represent each state on the Republican National Committee.
Right.
So he's held that position for a while. I would, that position doesn't take hard-charging policy positions, so it's more of they go to a lot of receptions, and, there's wine and cheese and probably diet sodas as well.
I hope there's Diet Coke.
Yeah, but they go to these a lot of reception type, sort of cosmetic position. They also host a national convention every year, so there's some power that does come in that moment in presidential election cycle. But you have asked precisely the right question for this, because wherever his somewhat unknown brand lands, it will affect either Becky Edwards or Celeste Malloy.
Right.
Now, my instinct, because I've known Bruce for so long, I have him sort of attached to incumbency and sort of the legacy of the party. And truthfully, the right edge of the party tends to punish people who have been around too long. You know what I mean? You become impure the longer you're attached to the organism that is politics. You're not renegade enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Celeste actually has the possibility of being the further right on the spectrum. I hesitate to say that he's capable of coming into the right of Celeste.
Okay.
And so my instinct would tell me that he's much more likely to cut into Becky Edwards than to Celeste Malloy, just because, but I'm familiar with him. I've watched him. I've seen, he's a max out donor to Mitt Romney for the Senate and when he ran for president. There are a lot of things that can be used to define him as a product of the age-old machine. And just like Becky Edwards as a previous sitting elected official with a lot of votes to hang around her neck. So I think Celeste actually has the potential of being the one that's not harmed by a Huff candidacy. But you are asking exactly the right question, and I think it's what the listeners should be looking for is where does Bruce Huff come down on the political spectrum relative to these folks? How will he either define himself or be defined by the race going forward?
Right. And so, all right, let's take what you're saying as gospel. Let's say that I got it wrong. What should then Becky Edwards' strategy be if he qualifies?
Yeah, I would push him to the right as far as it's in her interest to push Bruce to the right as far as she can. Find every word he's ever said, every contribution he's ever given to every fringe candidate that might be out there as a matter of public record and make that as noisy as possible.
Got it. So she's got to try to make truth what I think is true, right? To make him seem. And if you are, so let's say I'm correct and you are wrong. Mm-hmm. What is the strategy for Celeste Malloy?
The inverse of that.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
it's just the inverse. She's
right.
He's the fact that he maxed out. He's been a significant contributor to campaigns of across the spectrum. But if she can staple him to the folks that will be the most repulsive to primary Republican voters in the 2nd Congressional District, that's what they'll try to do.
All right. Thank you, Scott. I love these conversations with you. Coming up, President Biden has been on the campaign trail the last few weeks touting Bidenomics. After the break, we'll talk about maybe a real-life cautionary tale of those policies. Stay with us.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Britt Johnson. KSL's top story this hour. It's so hot and the air quality is so gunky, some state employees are being asked to work from home this week. Utah officials say eligible state workers should plan on remote work today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. Today's air quality is in the unhealthy for sensitive groups category. The University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill announced it will start providing free tuition to students from the state if their families make less than $80,000 a year. But could these tuition waivers face lawsuits, similar to President Biden's loan forgiveness plan? KSL legal analyst Greg Skordas tells the David Dujanovic Show he doesn't think so.
I mean, if it's hard, fast $80,000, I still think any challenge to that would be very weak. But I'm assuming these states are going to have some other levels of financial assistance based on income that exceeds that $80,000 number.
Skordas says he thinks a lot of other states will follow what North Carolina is doing, but the big question will be how the programs are funded. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. After kicking off his 3-country trip in the UK, President Biden heads to the high-stakes NATO summit in Lithuania. Some of the main focuses will be climate change and the war in Ukraine. Your money at this moment, the Dow in the green, 209 points. The S&P is up 10 points. The NASDAQ has gained 24 points. Coming up, it's hot out there. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
What do you need to hear in the morning to feel ready for the day?
Important news that happened overnight, the traffic you'll hit on the roads.
You'll be ready for your day with us.
Join Utah's Morning News 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Hi, Doug Wright, and it's always easy for me to talk about the Connecticut soft water system. When friends ask me about it, sometimes people just stop me in the grocery store and they say, okay, really, now what's the deal with Connecticut? I go, we've had it in 2 different homes now. We absolutely love the Connecticut soft water system, and it truly is 70% more efficient than anything else out on the market today. And here's the best way to really explain what a difference that makes. When I put 1 bag of salt in our system, a neighbor who has a differing system will put in 3. It's that dramatic, and it's totally non-electric. I mean, we just went through the time changes and everything. How many things did you have to adjust and turn it back or forward, whatever the deal might be? You never have to worry about that with Connecticut. It's totally mechanical. This really is the time to call my friends at Connecticut, 801-576-8600, or go to softwaterutah.com.
At Shane Company, we believe everybody is made to shine. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. Shining is not for a chosen few. Like a rare gemstone, each one of us was created under just the right set of circumstances. Your moments, your milestones, your love story, all deserve to shine bright. You don't need an occasion or an invitation. You and your life are the event. At Shane Company, we handcraft our jewelry with the greatest care and hand select the most beautiful gemstones so you can shine. So put on a pair of earrings that make your eyes sparkle. Wear diamonds that light up the room. Try on sapphires in every color of the rainbow. Give an heirloom that collects new stories with each generation. We're all made to shine. Shane Company, fine jewelry since 1929.
This is Jeff Stout with Fink & McGregor, Mortgages Made Simple. Over the years, I have seen a lot of down payment assistance programs. Most of them just aren't practical for one reason or another, but we have one now that is pretty solid. This program is for first-time home buyers or some buyers who have been out of the market for several years. It includes a gift of up to $4,000 to help with the down payment. Given that this program only calls for a 3% down payment in the first place, this gift can be a real game changer. Some restrictions apply. One restriction is that the household income cannot be over a certain amount, which for most areas along the Wasatch Front is around $85,000 annual income. Call us today if you want to take a look. Fink & McGregor, Mortgages Made Simple, 801-264-9494. That's 264-9494. Or on the web at finkmcgregor.com. NMLS 289115.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Granite Credit Union's High Yield Savings Certificates. Here's Ricky Meese.
On your Salt Lake County freeways, however, we still have some leftover heavy traffic. Speeds are improving, but it's busy southbound I-15 between 5300 and 7200 south. The Utah Symphony's Deer Valley Music Festival in Park City features Ben Folds, Leanne Rimes, the Beach Boys, and more. June 30th through August 4th in Park City at DeerValleyMusicFestival.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, it's going to be really warm today, a high of 98 degrees, and it's going to look pretty similar for the next couple of days. Thursday is the only day we get a little bit of a drop in the temperature, but we're still going to have highs in the 90s. Clear skies, lots of sun, but also a little bit of wind. Right now it's 94 degrees and sunny at KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM, 1160 AM, and KSLNewsRadio.com, your all-day companion for news.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm Scott Simpson here with Leah Murray. We're filling in for Boyd, who's presumably having
a wonderful day.
A wonderful day outside of the studio today, and we're doing our best not to ruin his show.
And to stay on brand.
That's right.
Being well behaved. Yeah.
That's right. And we've been talking about a lot of different topics, both national and local. And one that got me a little fired up a couple of segments ago is the national economy and public policy related to the economy and the levers that are being pulled, all of those things. One thing that was interesting, and I think you and I talked about this
it in KSL at night
a couple of weeks ago in the evening show, that Biden sort of took a gamble, in my view, by stapling his brand to the ups and downs of the economy, over which he may or may not be able to control. Right?
That's right. And we both talked about whether, it's not a super great idea to add your name to something that may really backfire on you, right? But I guess this version of Bidenomics, this industrial policy, is something he is touting, right? So it's something I guess he's going to run the next year on, this spike in U.S. manufacturing construction, around clean energy, around semiconductors, other preferred industries, and that it's working.
Yeah, I see the need, and it even cuts across political lines a little bit because, I think a Republican would respond to the repatriation of there's a national security interest to having manufacturing here at home, right?
Right.
And very kind of red meat Republican perspective. And so they have picked an issue that kind of cuts across party lines, perhaps. But the question is, this unbelievable amount of spending that can tend to happen when you incentivize economic activity in one sector or another, does it really have the return on investment that you think it should?
Right. And to help us figure out what's going on, we've got Scott Lincecum, who is the Director of General Economics at the Cato Institute. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Good to be back.
So can you please just make sure I didn't get that wrong or, correct me? But did I have what Bidenomics is correct? It's this kind of reshoring, this industrial economics we've got going on, or is there more to it?
Well, there's certainly other aspects, but the part about the domestic manufacturing resurgence is very much about industrial policy. The United States Congress and the Biden administration over the last couple of years have spent well over $1 trillion in taxpayer funds to repatriate supply chains, to invest in solar panels and electric vehicles and semiconductors. And the president is pointing to an undoubted spike in construction in manufacturing to say, aha, my policies are working, Bidenomics is working. Now, the problem, of course, is that what's seen is that construction investment. What's unseen are, first, and I think most importantly, and as I just blogged on, what happens next? Everybody loves a ribbon-cutting ceremony, and certainly there has been this construction. But what we want for an economy is productive investment. When you throw $1 trillion at stuff, you're going to get some factories. But are those factories actually going to end up producing things of value to the economy? Or are they going to sit empty? Are they going to crowd out better uses for those same dollars? And, we have, unfortunately, a lot of experience with industrial policy. And you see that there are a lot of failures, whether it is Solyndra, as everyone might know, or Foxconn in Wisconsin, or the Wall Street Journal just wrote about this Solar City plant in New York that cost more than $1 billion in taxpayer funds. But dotted all over the country are memorials to these failed investments. And that's money, $1 billion here, $1 billion there, that could have been better deployed in the economy, whether it is reducing tax and regulatory burdens on private investment or going to training and education. That's what's not seen. And unfortunately, for Bidenomics, that's those unseen costs that really undermine the idea that this is a great investment in funds.
All right, so I hear you, and I read your piece, and I was going to pick on you a little bit, but you've kind of like made it impossible for me to pick on you because I'm from upstate New York, and I was going to say I'm not sure I see like a Cuomo-backed prediction, right, with a Tesla plant as the best example. But I hear you saying that there's memorials across the country. So can you talk to me about like what do you see as a better alternative then?
Right.
Kind of what's a better way of doing what Biden's trying to do?
Sure. So my colleague Adam and I a couple weeks ago looked at a different policy, what we call full expensing of investment, which essentially allows businesses to immediately write down their investments instead of amortizing them over a long period. And what we showed is that that type of tax policy does a really good job at boosting private sector investment, particularly for capital-intensive manufacturing. So things like semiconductor plants that require a lot of land and a lot of equipment. But does so in a market-based way. So instead of picking in winners and losers, instead of having politics and bureaucracy get involved, what you allow is private investors to be more encouraged because of this tax policy to do that type of investment. And not only does it actually encourage the same type of investment, it does it at a far lower price tag. We estimate that it's maybe a third as much in terms of the budgetary hit as all this industrial policy that's been thrown out. So you get more bang for your buck, you get less politics, less potential for waste and fraud and the rest, and you do it at a much lower cost. So there are alternatives, and that's again the kind of unseen side of industrial policy. People just look, we spent a bunch of money and we got a factory, but they don't look at how those same resources could have been deployed in a way that generates more economic growth and doesn't have all of the politics and cronyism and the rest that's attached to it.
Scott, help me with this. It feels like Biden has tried to thread a needle here. Is it different? I mean, this clean energy spend that he's clearly trying to do to appeal to his base, is it any different than what we saw back during the Obama years, where they were doing the same kind of clean energy spending? I remember, but there were distortive effects then that I work in the finance industry a little bit, and the used car industry got destroyed by cash for clunkers, and it ultimately ended up hurting the people. I think that party would tell you that they intend to help. It was really destructive. Is he doing something special here, or is this just playing to his base and taking a calculated gamble?
Yeah, it's definitely very similar to what happened in 2009 with the stimulus bill, the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act, but it's done on a much larger scale. The stimulus bill from 2009, in terms of its green energy investments, was far smaller than what we've seen over the last couple of years. So this is basically taking Obamanomics and putting it on steroids. But unfortunately, it's actually doing even more than that in terms of the potential distortions, because as rough and problematic as those Obama-era subsidies were, they weren't very protectionist. So in other words, you could use, for the most part, equipment and other materials from anywhere in the world. You didn't have to use union labor. You didn't have to do this. Well, the Biden administration rules attach a lot more strings to those investments, which raises costs. It upsets our trading partners. The Europeans right now are very ticked off about all this, and that encourages potential retaliation against American exports. And so, unfortunately, it's actually, I think, much worse than the last time we did this in the green energy space.
Well,
and quite frankly, something we've done a lot throughout history. It's not just the Obama-era stuff.
Awesome. Scott Lincicome, thank you for helping us sort this out. From Cato's Institute of Trade Policy Expert, thanks for joining the show.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Coming up, Leah, we've been hammering a little bit with the governor on social media. We're going to see if we can find good news in that coming up.
When making important life decisions about your financial future or insurance needs, it's important to work with people you trust. That's why at Farm Bureau Financial Services, we don't rely on algorithms, bots, or auto-generated answers. We get to know you so we can help you get the right coverage and make smart financial decisions. We're the people who provide insurance and financial planning all in one place. Find a Farm Bureau agent or advisor at fbfs.com/protect. It's your future. Let's protect it.
Guys, did you know your testosterone level impacts your energy, libido, sleep, weight, hair loss, mood, and even ED? And right now, Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City will check your testosterone for free. They've helped thousands of men since 2011 feel and perform better. They're so confident they can help you, they even guarantee it. Schedule your free testosterone test, exam, and consultation today. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
In this market, you'll find Fisher Investments is different than other money managers.
Different how? Aren't we all just looking for the hottest stocks?
Nope. We use diversified strategies to position our clients' portfolios for their long-term goals.
You don't just provide cookie-cutter portfolios?
No. We tailor our clients' portfolios to their goals and needs.
But you still sell investments that generate high commissions for you, right?
No, we don't sell commission-based products. We're a fiduciary, the highest standard of care for a financial advisor. It means we're obligated to act in our client's best interest.
So when do you make more money? Only when your clients make more money?
Yep, we have one transparent management fee structured so we do better when our clients do better.
Sounds like you really look out for your clients.
We do, because our priority is helping them achieve a comfortable retirement. That might be why most of our clients come from other money managers. Visit FisherInvestments.com to find out why investors like you switch to us. Fisher Investments. Clearly different money management.
Investments in securities involve the risk of loss.
Have you Googled yourself lately? Are there negative posts from an ex-employee or from a former client? Maybe an outdated news article or sensitive personal information about your family? Search engines don't always get it right. But right or wrong, it's your reputation on the line. That's where Reputation Defender by Norton comes in. One of the most trusted names in online reputation repair, Reputation Defender has been fixing people's search results for over 15 years. Their cutting-edge approaches help you to wipe away unwanted information in your search results. They also promote the good stuff so that it rises to the top, helping you put your best foot forward. Your good name is too valuable to leave to the whims of a Google algorithm. Take control with Reputation Defender. You can start by getting your free reputation report card at reputationdefender.com or call 800-401-6681 to speak to an expert. That's 800-401-6681.
The Zero Res deal is on. Today and tomorrow only, get a fourth room free. 20% off odor treatments and a free laundry service. Call for all the details, zerores.com.
Jeff Kaplan. I'm originally from New Jersey. It's a little different than Utah. Oh, okay. It's a lot different than Utah. You understand what I'm saying here? I first came here on a date. I had an employee who lived in Utah, and I said, that girl, I think I'm going to meet her, and it's tax deductible. I never left. I've never left. I've been here for going on 15 years now, and we've been married for 12. I've been around the block in the radio business. I've worked for a lot of major companies. There are none with the commitment to the community that I found at KSL. There are none with the camaraderie of the staff that I found at KSL. And there are none with the commitment of management and the company to the safety, the health, the welfare of their staff. And I just love this place.
Ride Home with Jeff Kaplan, weekdays 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Britt Johnson. First, state employees are being asked to work from home this week because of bad air quality. Second, the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill announced it will start providing free tuition to students from the state if their families make less than $80,000 a year. Third, President Biden heads to the high-stakes NATO summit in Lithuania. Some of the main focuses will be climate change and the war in Ukraine. Right now, it's 94 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
And sitting in for Boyd Matheson today is me, Leah Murray, alongside my good friend Scott Simpson. Scott, it has been a pleasure spending 2 hours with you.
Yeah, they told me 2 hours with one of the hippest professors in political science.
Oh, I love that.
Anywhere, I jumped at the chance.
Oh, that's fabulous. That is so fabulous. So I'm going to just pick on you a little bit. I hope it's okay.
Sure.
So over not this past weekend, but the weekend before, my Twitter feed got shut down, Scott, because I breached the 600 post wall, and I'm not willing to pay, I don't know.
That's the new rule.
That's the new rule. Yeah. I'm not willing to pay $7 or whatever it is to be able to watch 600 posts around an event. And so I jumped ship. Kind of. Let's just be clear. My breakups always take a long time. They're very messy. So
you gave it a ramp.
Yeah. So I am maybe moving to a different ship. And I picked up Threads. Did you pick up Threads?
I did not pick up Threads.
Okay.
I haven't yet. I'm old and cranky. I've become that guy. Like I've always witnessed when I was a kid, know, but I have sort of become that guy. I don't know if I told you this. I think I did tell you this. I was permanently suspended from Twitter last year.
Which,
last
by
fall.
the way, I love that. Permanently suspended.
But that's what they call it. I got this thing. Every time I log in, I get this little flash. I couldn't see anything. And I am not like, you go look at my feed, and I'm a lurker. I don't post. Like, I occasionally post.
Right.
You retweet some stuff. Like, and I very rarely, but somehow I offended Elon. I don't know what I did, but he shut me down. And he said, "You're permanently suspended."
I love that.
So, I'm halfway eliminated. I don't know what that means, but yeah. So and it's only been maybe a month, 6 weeks that I was allowed to come back. And truthfully, it's all painful. Like, I don't know why I even care, because the internet, social media, I think is like 85% life destroying garbage. And then you got about 10% of maybe cat videos, and then maybe there's 5% of redeeming content that actually brings joy, that's either funny, genuinely funny, or clever, or just celebrates goodness in humanity.
So,
but
Scott,
it's such a sliver.
I love this. First of all, I think we need to work on whatever behavioral tics you have that gets you cat videos for like 15% of your social media.
I'm not saying
feed.
I love that, although, but maybe it is the algorithm that's outing me. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, no.
The algorithm knows you better maybe than you do. Well, let me just say this.
Yeah.
So you're not on Twitter anymore, and you're not going to join Threads, maybe. But I think over the weekend, I saw something cool that might redeem what you just were talking about, the slice that is redemption. I don't know that I would have known about it if I weren't following my Twitter feed and Representative John Curtis talking about a must-watch. Let's just hear what we're talking about.
Lee, look at this story of Kenneth Rooks, the NCAA champion who fell, who got back up, reattached himself to the pack, and now is running in this and making a run for the championship title. And they are going so fast right now. The world championship standard is in their sights.
Wow, what a story this is. From falling to the finish and a national championship. What a story. Kenneth Rooks.
I just love that. So if you didn't understand what was happening, BYU's Kenneth Rooks starts the steeplechase in the U.S. Track and Field Championships, and he falls over. So he finds himself on the ground in Oregon, and basically, I guess you have a choice. You could just roll over and be like, well, maybe next time. But this young person stood up and just took off, and so actually ran faster than the 3-time steeplechase All-American. He ran the NCAA title in Austin, Texas last month, so he got maybe a personal record. I don't know that I know that, but ran this thing in 8 minutes, 16 seconds after falling over.
Yeah, well, he just lived out a church talk. I mean, this guy like created beautiful content.
Explain that to me. Tell me what that means.
There's this get up and win that race. It's like the falling over, getting up, and completing, like human interest story. You can't get better than that. And so to have it captured in that way. And by the way, I'm in no way qualified. I'm not to even talk about athletic victory, but I mean, I'm not the paragon of human fitness. But I think about, you saw the fall, right?
Yeah.
That looked incredibly painful.
Right, and the way he describes it, right? People were running over him, right?
He got, falling in front of other people that are running and
as fast
stomping
as they
their
can
feet
go.
as fast as they can. And then to somehow, not only, obviously this is mental conditioning that allows you to sort of put away whatever pain he must have felt and to find his way to the finish line. but also the physical conditioning. He had to be capable of doing that, right?
Of getting knocked over, getting run over, and then standing up and running faster than anyone else.
Actual capability, yeah.
Right,
it's
right,
amazing.
Right. Yeah, and I just think, so a little bit, I love that it's a church talk, just makes me so happy. I love that you went there. But I love this idea, and I was reading in the Salt Lake Tribune about it, where he's telling NBC Sports that he had thought about it, right? So he basically had thought to himself, if I fell, what would I do? Right? So I don't know if that's also in the church talk, right? But the cool thing I thought about that was, like when you prepare for things to prep for the failure as well, right? So he was like, I had a plan. I was going to be front of the pack, and so I was just going to do this thing. I bump into somebody, I fall over, everyone runs over me, but it's not really going to take me out of the game because I actually had prepped. If something like that happens, what will be the thing that I do? So, right, he done like that mental preparation, and then he just delivered, and then he wins.
Yeah, it is inspiring. I'm not sure it's going to change my morning behavior. I probably won't get up and go for a run in the morning.
You're not going to go run a steeplechase?
But I do think it's a metaphor, and I do think it's endearing that we have the capacity to take a story like that and shove it around the world instantly, and that people actually still react to that, given what we often are exposed to in that space.
So let's circle back right here, right? I know about this because of Congressman John Curtis's tweet talking about it, right? Yeah. And I'm saying today to you, we should talk about this. This adorable thing happened. Yeah. Like, I didn't watch it. It's not like it's on television. It's not the NBA, right? Like, this was not something I would have been aware of in any other world, that there wasn't someone who could tweet about it. And not that I'm saying that your permanent suspension, whatever that means, should be overturned, or that you should come back to social media. But maybe I do kind of wonder, my gosh, all the way looping back to the top of this show, when Governor Cox is worried about social media and the damage that it does to mental health, really maybe it's more about what we post and what we talk about. And maybe we could all do a better job of, right, elevating the Kenneth Rooks stories, right, as opposed to making fun of people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This whole debate says more about us than it does the platform or the technology.
That is exactly right. And I always tell my students, it's like the algorithms, it's the humans who do the things, right?
That's
so we need to choose consciously to curate our algorithms that have, I don't know, how did you called it a church talk, right? But they have like feel-good stories.
It's not just feel-good. It's like a celebration of the human capacity.
Right.
It's what we're all capable of. I mean, he's got some DNA and has proven discipline sufficient to get there.
Right, he's an all-American athlete.
But it is this the way that we survive, living on this rock together is hope, right?
Yeah.
And to look for ways to celebrate that and to send it around the world points to the good congressman for helping to amplify that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And the thing I like too is it's about celebrating. So it's about hope, but it's also about celebrating the people who do the cool things, right? Yeah. And not just elevating the people who do what I said before, like the fun things, right? So that we have to be always helping each other, and to help you not have your cat videos. Scott Simpson, you need to curate your feed that has more Kenneth Rooks.
Is there a consultant I can get for this? Like I'm not sure how it happened, but Kenneth Rooks over cat videos.
Kenneth Rooks over cat videos. Scott Simpson, it has been a pleasure chatting with you for 2 hours. I hope that all of our listeners enjoyed what we were talking about and took some takeaway from the day.
Yeah, Leah, thank you for giving me a chance to chat with you. I get every now and again this chance to be with a professor of politics, political science from my alma mater, Weber State, and to just dig through some of the issues of the day. I love it. Couldn't be happier about it.
Thank you.
KSL FM Midvale, KSL Salt Lake City. Listen on the KSL News Radio app and in your car at 102.7 FM. KSL News Radio, Utah's all-day companion for news.
Good afternoon, 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan, 94 in Salt Lake City. KSL's top story, we'll find out how many Salt Lake City schools could be at the risk of closing at a district board meeting tomorrow. KSL News Radio's Lindsay Eretz is live with details. Lindsay?
Yeah, Jeff, the district has been working on a population and boundary study, and they hired a director of boundaries and planning to figure out things like populations for each school, whether there will be new development in the area, and they'll present their findings at this school board meeting tomorrow night. They'll also present whether existing schools need to be reconfigured at all. Now, much of this is coming after a legislative audit at the end of last year that reported declining enrollment, low capacity, which unnecessarily cost taxpayers a lot of money. That audit recommended